I will clap my hands. I'm stomping my feet.
Oh, you went
Do
to
the
summer
hokey
camp
pokey and
too.
you turn yourself around.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
About.
I saw a poster
Oh my
somewhere that
God.
said, "What if, what if the hokey pokey is what it's all about?" Um,
Oh, that's so funny. That's very funny.
yeah.
The Big Sell Illuminati, where some of the best in the business discuss what's worked, what's working, and what's failed in selling big sales. Our panel of experts includes Clarity Seeker, a black belt of brands, our snarky marketer, Monique de Maio. CEO to CEO selling is his game. Fortune 500 in his lane. The Lex Luthor of the close, Mark Kennedy. The effective executive, a force on the boards, a buyer on fire, Tiffany Olson. David versus Goliath selling, the prince of process, Sun Tzu of big sales strategy, Tom Searcy. And that's your panel. Now it's time to talk about big sales.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Big Sale Illuminati. We're grateful to have everybody here at the podcast. And been getting a lot of feedback about the podcast, which is great. Mark's not able to be with us right now. I would say mixed reviews. Sometimes people love having Mark here. Sometimes people don't like having Mark here. That's not true. Everybody loves having Mark here. We're going to talk today about the smart. That's not true. It's not the smart, but it is the educated buyer. And really, do we like them? Do we not like them? How often do we face them? What do we do when we face them? Because there's a variety of things that are going on out there. When we have new management coming in, they're not always as educated as we'd like to have them. When we have people when we're selling to our prospects, and we've had management who's been there forever, the problem that we've got with them is that they're sometimes resistant to new ideas. But many of us selling professional services, regular business, new products and technologies have to educate our buyers because they've got to have new ideas. So we want to talk about that today. And Monique is going to help us out with getting us going on that. So Monique, let's talk about the educated buyer. I think what I described as the new people into the position, the people that are, let's just say, been entrenched in their position for a long time. There's got to be some kind of struggle there.
Let's level set. What do we actually mean when we talk about educating our customers or our buyers? There's different ways to do it through the sales process. And I was going to kind of break it up between the three of us and have you talk about the ways that you've used different strategies and tactics to do that with your buyers. And it might not be just because they're new. It could also be because you have a product or a solution that is new to the market, or it's been enhanced so much that it's unrecognizable, or there's a big differentiator, whatever. What is the successful strategy or tactic that you've used in the past to educate that buyer community from your perspective, Tom? And then I'll throw it to Tiffany.
I start off with a story. Well, not every time, but one of the techniques I use is the story. And the story is the idea that it gives the buyer the opportunity to nod and agree with you because we all know a certain level of history. So I'll go back and I'll say, Y2K was a transformation of a huge infusion inside of technology that was cash driven. It was the ability to amortize dollars, and you probably bought new hardware, software, and etc. I'm going to get a nod out of the buyer at that particular time. And we're in 2010, and now we're getting our IT people. They're looking for platform changes. They're pushing really, really hard for Oracle, Salesforce, other kinds of major platforms to help them run their technology. That's 2010. Now we're in 2020 plus. What's the next stage of the real technology that we've got out there? So we went through the first one, nod, nod, nod. We went through the second phase, nod, 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 because we've all been through that. And now what's going forward looking like? And so I think we agree cybersecurity is a driver in the going forward. At distance workers is going to be at that going forward. And I think that we really should look at the idea of international access to our databases and systems because we're going to have to deal with things like language. We're going to have to do things like their security. We're going to have to do with how they look at us on that at distance approach. And the way to consider that is to look at the following three things. What you heard me in that story do was to get them to agree to a point in time in history, another point in time in history, a new point in time in history, and then what are the implications going forward? And that gives me the open area to start to sell a new experience. We've already had the agreements. Now it's time to introduce the new idea.
Okay, so yeah, so an agreement, then sales future state. That is, what you're describing there is a sales call. Usually, it sounds like a little bit of an in-person, potentially a virtual, but it's still a sales call. What do you do before you get to that moment in time to educate your buyer that they even want to take the meeting?
The provocative conversation is the key one, whether that's text, email, first introduction because someone's introduced you. It's the research beforehand that says in your marketplace right now, there is something coming. We refer to it as an inflection point. But the inflection point is coming. It will be happening in the next 3 to 5 years. We've done the work. There are going to be winners and losers. The winners are making choices now. Those people who are not will make choices in a year and a half to 2 years from now, and they're going to lose market share. I want to talk to you about that upcoming inflection point where there will be winners and losers, part of what's going to happen in the marketplace. So in that point, I'm making and I can add additional detail to that based upon what's the marketing that I'm selling into. But I need to be talking about, again, a future state. I mean, selling is about selling a better future. That is what we all sell. Even if it's trading out one vendor for another vendor, the future state that we're selling is the new vendor, us. So that's how I look at that idea of an interruption style of talking to them and a forward casting style of selling.
So Tiffany, as the buyer on fire, and you've been in a position where people have used this education thing maybe sometimes to their detriment, right? So tell us tell us what your experience has been with the good and bad versions of being the educated buyer and the buyer who's been educated. So there's kind of a twofold question there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like Tom's the second part where you talked about I'm going to talk about the disruption that's happening, the tipping point that's happening, the milestone that's going to occur in the industry, and you need to know about that and move on it now because that will make you a winner in the marketplace. That to me is very compelling. I want to know more. I want to learn more. But for me, getting factual information on the market is one of the key things that makes me a much more educated buyer. And I'll get factual information from a lot of different sources. But if someone comes to me and they just have really good factual market information, as they see it, and then their product and service and what that can do, and I really like that kind of here's then the future state, that to me is one of the best things that somebody can come in to try to sell me on their product. I also like when someone has done the financials for like the buyer or the seller coming in to do and has done financials, even if they aren't correct, because it at least gives me a thinking of what they're thinking, what they think that it can save me. And then I can take that financial information, put it with ours, which may be proprietary information that we aren't going to share. However, it at least gives me that kind of thinking of what it could do for me and the company. So that really, really works well. That the disruption is coming, be the first to help be disruptive. Here's the facts of the market. Here's what we can do. That is very compelling to me.
There's always the question of how do you get to that first conversation and that first meeting? And that piece right there, it's hard to get senior executives to attend webinars that aren't enormously provocative. They'll send somebody else, they'll try and get the recording, they'll try and get, transcript, white paper, whatever. So you have to get a very, very provocative title and idea set to get people to attend any kind of a webinar or a lecture or whatever you want to go ahead and call it. They will come to, and what we talked about before, even virtual series, even virtual windows of time. If there's going to be a period of time that's going to be with you and other players in the industry, whether that's virtual or that's at a conference or whatever, you can get them into those sessions. And I like that part of it. I think that this is one of those places where you come to the person who's near to the very, very top, because sometimes it's hard to get to the very, very top. And your answer then at that point is saying, we have a proprietary tool for evaluating the financials. We're going to ask for an NDA. This is normally something that we would do as an outside consultant or someone who's going to provide, because we're giving a picture of the future. And we'll come in, the NDA covers you and it covers us, gives us an opportunity to exchange real information. Now you have to get to the senior person, but that particular circumstance does give you a chance to do what I refer to in a recent book as napkin math, which is what you just described. I'm going to give you some of the financial information. You should come in prepared with financial information, and we're going to work through that in a relatively tight, not 30 statistics on your side, 30 statistics on our side. Not going to work. All right. Not in the first meeting. Over time, sure. But in that way, you're establishing credibility, your expertise. You get a chance to move forward. So there's a variety of ways to access, but it's not always easy.
Yeah. Tom, one of the things that I wanted to go back to that you said is this, how do you get to those buyers? I think that the webinars, especially if they're recorded conferences where you can get a lot of information, many times if, let's say, one of your customers is speaking, they might just come in, their speech, and leave. So you need to make sure, if you want to talk to them, that you are right there at the end of their talk, at the end of the stage, engaging them immediately, or you might lose them. So don't think that you can wait till the end of the seminar, but it's the webinars. And Monique, I'm sure you have all kinds of ways that you're able to tell who clicks on the webinars, who stays, who they are, how to follow up with them, because that is where a lot of that education becomes so important.
Right. Yeah. No, it's funny because I was going to say there's a whole lot of salespeople who are listening saying, well, where the hell is marketing in this process? I can't just get a meeting all by myself, and so I was kind of dissect what you guys have thought that's been working, because the getting somebody to a webinar is actually much tougher than it sounds. And getting somebody to a demo is like, forget about it. So you kind of have to provide the air cover for the brand to say, okay, we have to position ourselves as the conduit to the information about what's happening in compliance in this particular industry, or there's regulatory changes afoot. And if you don't layer this on top of your audio and video technology, for instance, like the headsets that we're wearing right now, there's certain headsets and audio and video technology that's not allowed to be bought by the government or by education, because it just does not have the right privacy technology. It doesn't have the right, whatever. So these are the kinds of things that I'm not suggesting that the buyer may not know that, but they may not know that they could get into trouble if they were to buy a product that doesn't have that. So right? So what do we do in the industry before we get to the buyer on fire at the conference, speaking at the keynote? We have to do everything because the buyer's journey today looks like spaghetti.
Yeah. And I think you really, but both of you hit on something that very important. A milestone change, a tipping point, whether it be change in regulations. There's a lot of that going on in a lot of industries, and people need to know, especially if it's like not fully decided. So everybody's trying to gather as much information on the topic as possible. Those types of things, I think, really get a lot of people attending a webinar, a seminar, a virtual, a lunch and learn type thing, are the ones that I've really found very useful.
One of the things, and I think that you do this, you have to provoke. We have a thing inside of what we do called the layer cake. And that the layer cake goes through a variety of different ideas, but it talks about what do managers think about, and you move up the directors, vice presidents, and CEOs and owners, and almost all of them, a manager is looking just to spend budget. Directors are looking to establish budget. Vice presidents are looking to say what are the budgets choices that I've made, and the owners and CEOs and the presidents and et cetera are looking at what's the net output or goal of what we've got. Inside of that, managers are looking at 30 days, and you move up. When you get to presidents and CEOs, they're looking out between 3 months and as much as 18 months. So that issue of provocation, I look at marketing and marketing's ability to reach in and say, this is not what's going on now. This is what is going to happen. And marketing can really make a statement out. A company that I happen to know, the owner of a friend of mine who does outreach, he did outreach. He got Iger on the phone. He got
Wow.
Musk on the phone. And he did it very much through this idea of provocation. It says, this is what's coming. And they wind up taking the call. Now, the call might have been scheduled literally on these guys' schedules. They're like 5 to 10 minutes. So all the research, all the material, all of the graphic pieces that go to, all of the verbal messaging, market helps them to develop that because you can't do that in a bubble. I mean, I really think that marketing helps companies to look forward.
So you guys sound like you're a little bit advocating for being a little controversial or a little edgy so that you get the attention, so that you get the engagement, it sounds like. I mean, you kind of pushing the envelope as much as you can, provided yet your solution or your product isn't like, vanilla toast, been there, done that, same as everybody else's, right? And that I think is important too, that it's not vanilla toast, same as everybody else's. And my personal opinion on that is better to be different than better.
I think different is good, but if you're not better, then you're just different.
Right, exactly. Right. That's exactly right. So Tom, what is the in your opinion the benefits or sometimes the perils of educating your customer and your buyer? Does it lead to shorter sales cycle and higher win rates and increased customer sat, or where has it worked and where, with your clients?
You can unpack this one for a long, long time. Here's the thing. If people believe that you're talking to that there is a different future, the conversation will continue. If they believe the future will be the same, you become a commodity. And so the education comes from the perspective that the world is changing. More importantly, the world is changing. Who cares? Because we're pretty self-centered. Exactly. We're so the world is changing. What a unique statement. No, the idea is your customers are changing. Your marketplace is changing. Here's how they're changing. And so if you're not selling something provocative, if you're selling somebody who's just trying to make their retirement or is, just believes that you're selling vanilla toast, like you said, then it's a pricing exercise. That my point about that is get out or hand it off to your procurement or your people that know how to pitch to procurement and sell your pricing and negotiate down what the scale is of your contract. I'm a big believer in getting rid of people who don't look at the future and only look at the past and believe that it will repeat itself. Get rid of them out of the sales cycle as quickly as possible. As if I'm and people are like, oh my God, you're going to get rid of them. You're talking to, you're talking to General Motors, or they're not even called General Motors anymore. Anyway, you're going on and you're talking to these people. They're a big company. We've got to go ahead and talk to them. It's Pfizer. We have to go talk to them, and etc. If they're still stuck without a perspective of the future, I'm sorry. I don't care how big the name is. Move on.
Right. And so there is something to be said for making sure you target the right size company for your pitch, because I think oftentimes what I hear a lot is they get enamored with the brand logo. I call it net new logos. They get very, very excited about that net new logo, but that net new logo is going to take 36 months to close, and the guy that's right here, who is mid-market, is going to take 6. And which one would you rather have? 6 of the 6 or one of the 36? It's like, come on now.
I will say this much. Inside of those big companies and etc., they're big enough that you should hunt and talk to other people with other areas of responsibility that you're potentially relevant to. So I said it was about brand. It's people I missaid that. It's people inside of high leadership people inside of a brand who have different issues, problems, challenges, budgets, fill in the blank.
So you're in the education of the salesperson's pitch. If they have the perspective of the other avatars, the other buyer influencers, they always sound smarter, don't they? Because they can address the perspectives with the CEO. I've already talked to manufacturing, I've already talked to ops, and I've already talked to marketing, and I've already talked to sales. And this is what I have taken all of this data and this information and I've aggregated it and I've broken it down into a move forward plan. How does this sound to you? Is so much more compelling than now we have to go do those 5 meetings and then come up with, is it even implementable? Benefiting from being educated by the salesperson. When has it happened to you that you may have gotten this education, but then you're able to use it against not against, I want to say, but during the sales process, and maybe they don't win?
There was a time when we actually, and Tom, I'm going to use these 3 little letters. I know it will irritate you today, but we did an RFP. But we put out an RFP because we really wanted to get actually a lot of education on what was going on in the market. There were 4 companies that came in, and we asked, we had set up the RFP so that there was a section in there for people to really kind of talk about the market in general, how they saw it, where they saw the future, how that they were going to mitigate risks in the future. And that information was so valuable to us because everyone approached it a little bit differently. And so we were really able then ourselves to put together what is our belief? What is our belief of what's going to happen? And then are there things that we can do to make sure that it happens the way that we want it to? So it wasn't so much using it against, it was more using it to educate ourselves and then to say, based on now everything that we know, so some weird things coming in from one vendor and from another, now let's go back. We invited people back. We had then a different type of robust conversation, more geared to what we felt those risks were. So it enabled us to take the information to really learn, appreciate it. And the people who came in, who were open, who were willing to partner with us, were the people that we brought back.
Okay.
We had
All
someone
right.
who was
All
a little
right.
arrogant. All right, what, Tom? Is this too Pollyanna for you? I can
Okay.
see it. I
First
can
of
see
all,
this in your
no, no,
face.
no. All I'm saying is you are who is hated. All right. You're a buyer.
Why?
Okay. No,
Why?
because you're just robbing people of intellectual property. You
I am
didn't
not
send out an
robbing
R.
anyone of
Listen,
intellectual property.
you didn't send out an RFP. You sent an RFI. You said request for sucking out your intellectual property. Then I'm going to go and put together an RFP. Then I'm going to bring people back.
Nope,
You,
disagree.
you
Disagree.
you set it up. You set it up. This isn't an RFP that you had to fill out. This is an RFP you sent out to other people to then go ahead and get a market survey, learn about the future, and then write your RFP.
We did not rewrite the RFP. So
All
yeah,
right.
I know,
All right.
I know. It's
No,
amazing
no.
I've bought stuff from you.
The stuff you bought from me didn't require an RFP.
That's because I knew you.
This is what Monique was talking about.
Yes. However, if, and in this particular case, it was in a market area rapidly changing, a a definite
Disruptor possibility.
disruptor possibility and essential to our business. We did the RFP, we got information, then we brought people back. We didn't change the RFP. We brought people back for round 2 to better understand. We were better educated. We were able to have a deeper conversation. And during that time, we were able to figure out what we need. I can tell you are just
I'm telling you, you're the buyer. I agree to disagree. All right, we'll agree to disagree.
All right.
Let's not do that. Let's just agree that you're wrong.
You might not want to do that in your sales call, Tom.
Yeah, there you go. Note to listeners, behavior is everything. If you piss off your buyer,
That's true. Pissing off your buyer is a good thing.
oh God. Okay. So someday, listen, the people who are listening to this will understand once we do the assessment of how you build a high performing team and I disclose to you what Tom's profile is, he's a challenge. I know you have very hard difficulty believing me when I say that, but his approach to life is to challenge right up front. So, creating conflict creates interest, creates engagement, creates conversation. That's your MO. That's not how Tiffany and I are wired. We're contributors. We like to do things a little differently. Now, let me just get to back to our regularly scheduled program and unpeel the onion of when you said I brought people back because they were open and they were open to partnering with us and whatever, I want to unpeel that onion a lot because this is a podcast where sales leaders are like, well, what does that mean? Like, what do I have to do in this process to get trust and welcome back? What did they do that you said, okay, I need to be with these people again?
So they were very open about the trends that were going on, the future that they saw, what areas of that they could work with and that they could do. Many things outside of their control, we knew that. Many things within their control. So what would they do? How would they work with us? But kind of the future, here's what's going on. Oh, and did you know that, this particular supplier is going to be shut down for a year and a half? Yeah. So if somebody didn't tell us that and it was their supplier, then that's information that we have. So next time it's, hey, we heard that so and so was going to be shut down. How does that impact you? So during this whole process, we just learn more and learn more and learn more, and then have the ability because it's not a one and done, come in, present, boom, everybody's done. It was too big of a decision. But instead it was, okay, now we know more. Now there was one group we didn't invite back.
I want to extend an olive branch, okay? To,
Okay, you get back in the door, Tom.
all right, thank you very much. Here's what I think I heard you say, all right, is that when you sent this out, you were asking, in effect, for people to see the future for you. And that would be provocative. They would say, this is where what's coming. Your supplier is going to close down, or and I'm just using that as an example that you put out there in this conversation. But whatever the RFP is that you sent out, you were inviting people to provoke what has occurred in in your marketplace up till now. You were saying to them, give me the information, give me an understanding of what the future is so that I can work with you to respond to the future. I would take that, and that's an olive branch, and saying, okay, I can see that. I can see that, Tiffany, as a way for a challenger like me to go in and say, I have to tell Tiffany something different than all of my competitors. I have to see it differently than Tiffany and everyone else. And if I could figure out a way to break the RP so I didn't have to and go ahead and fill it out, that would be what my approach would be.
I would only make you fill it out line by line, Tom. Everybody else could fill it out the way they wanted, but Tom would need to do it line by line by line.
That olive branch just got shredded. Like,
So this process, and I would love to know what it is that this big, what was it?
Yes, it was a material part of our business. And it was one that we had not done any type of hey, let's bring the universe in, have the discussion for about 5 years. So it was really time for us to really assess. The market had changed enough to really assess. So let's bring everybody in. Let's have these discussions and get to know people a little bit better. We gave people plenty of time, plenty of access, and now let's come in and have this conversation. Here's kind of the agenda we'd like you to follow.
I've seen that done in a really cool way.
Are
And
you
that's what,
trying to? Is this the olive branch coming
no
back?
It's
shit.
coming back.
I've given up. I've given up on the freaking olive branch. I could, but so the cool way that I've seen it done is where they bring, if you brought everybody into a informational meeting, I mean, like your four potential buyers and say, this is what we're trying to accomplish. I want you to go back. I want you to bring me, I'm going to send you out a vendor qualifier document that says that you qualify, you meet all the requirements, all the rest of that stuff to work with us. And then I need a proposal of what you'll do differently that tells me, and I've given you all the information equally. I've shared it with you guys equally. That was a briefing. Go bring me a proposal. Go qualify as a vendor. I've seen it done. Two companies had done that. And I thought to myself, that was really beneficial to the buyer because they gave a frame and they said, go do your best. I need to hear your best. Anyway, that was done in a great way, and I am certain now that you've had the opportunity to be educated on this approach as a buyer on fire, this is the idea that you'll follow in the future. I just want to just give you credit for making that good decision.
Oh, you're so full of it, Tom. Just so full of it. That's all right.
So beyond at the sales call, guys, we got to unpack for salespeople what is working in the market right now. The thing about what I was saying about the buyer's journey, what I think is overrated is that you can approach all of your buyer types the same way. And you pointed it out with what you call the layer cake in your recent book, Tom, and that is that if you're looking to sell at a director or above level, you have to go in with a very different value proposition, sales proposition, not a value proposition, sales. And also you're stressing different triggers, buying drivers. They're not buying in the same manner because they're not necessarily, they're not motivated by the same things. The VP is motivated by getting promoted, as you put in the book. I read the book. I did read the book cover to cover, I might add.
Thank you. Thank you very
There you go.
much.
So, I think there's got to be better with the tools that we have today. We can do better segmentation and better content and more directed tools. And I think we have to not underestimate the amount of free education we need to do from a marketing and sales enablement perspective before we even get in the room. And that is table stakes today.
We're going to wrap this up, but there's mechanisms of meeting table stakes. It's easy in when you're playing poker or whatever. You simply throw out an understandable amount of money, and then everything from that point goes forward. What do table stakes look like? Just three pieces for anybody that's listening to this that meet that table stakes. I don't know, ante.
Yeah. So what you guys said to me, it's content, 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 content in the way, the time, and the place that I want to consume it as a buyer. And that means that if I am looking at, first of all, if I'm not aware of your company, that's a problem. So you got to deal with the awareness stage. If I'm in consideration of your brand or your company or your products or your solutions, that you speak to me a little differently. And then if I'm in buy mode, then you speak to me even more differently. So you've got to go out there and start to do what you said you were doing in a sales meeting for free in advance, and you need to have the reputation for being the guy, the brand, the company, the salesperson that always is smarter than the other guy. And I think that's why, we have to do the webinars, we have to do the white papers, we have to do the executive points of view, we have to do the assessment tools online and the digital profiling tools and all that stuff that gives them a snapshot of if they're doing this kind of diagnostic before they step in the door, they're going to be the smartest guys in the room. Let's bring them in. So for me, that's the game that marketing and sales enablement and sales need to play. It's be the smartest guy in the room, but you got to do it before you get in the room. Otherwise, you won't even be invited.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it as well. I think that issue of being the smartest person in the room, you and I both know it's delicate. The buyer wants to be smart. They want the salesperson to be one step ahead, not 10 steps ahead.
Oh, so yes, thank you for that. That's really the smartest person in the room. I was referring to it as framework, not against their competitor, not their buyer. You never want to be the smartest person in the room when you have a buyer in the room.
Gently leading rather than sledgehammer leading. So, but we've seen that, right? Sledgehammer leading.
So you can wrap up. I think with the types of buyer education, I think we talked about that already, and I think that we're in a good place. Just cautionary tales: don't be the smartest person in the room when you have a buyer in the room.
That's right. This has been a really good. This has been a really good podcast session, and great to have everybody here. And we'll catch up with Mark on our next podcast. But till then, thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Big Sell Illuminati podcast. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Until our next episode, best wishes on your big sales.